At 2:17 a.m., the night did something it shouldn't. A U.S. reconnaissance satellite, routine orbit, routine pass, registered a blink. A triangular silhouette sweeping across the Gobi. Not a launch, not a training sortie. A shadow with movement too deliberate to be weather. For 47 seconds, the blip skated through sensor feeds. Analysts called it noise. Then it moved again, and the noise synchronized. Radars in Japan, Guam, and the Philippines picked up faint echoes that matched the same pattern. 3 separate systems, 1 ghost. In the Situation Room, they gave it a file name nobody would read aloud. Spectre-36. The label was cautious. The reaction wasn't. Men in basements and on carriers stopped typing. The automatic filters stopped routing the data to public dashboards. A single line in a classified memo changed posture across 3 continents. Unconfirmed, high priority. This is the moment the quiet war stopped being theoretical. A shadow showed up on America's screens. Not because someone wanted it found, but because someone watched too closely. The question that spread through the cables that night was simple and terrible. What hunts the ghost? To understand the panic, you have to meet the thing the world calls the F-47 Ghost Hawk. Built in secrecy, trained in silence, it was designed to do one thing: disappear. Not just evade radar, but exploit the gaps between sweeps, the blind math in signal processing. The F-47 skin bends radio waves. Its avionics talk to satellites and drones like a single brain. Pilots who flew it called it a machine that made luck obsolete. Every sortie wrote new rules for what counts as detectable. For years, tests showed the same result. Where the F-47 went, tracking systems followed shadows. That asymmetry created a doctrine: if you are invisible, you can hold the sky hostage. The Pentagon baked that doctrine into budgets and programs. Allies whispered about a new age of air dominance. Adversaries began to ask a different question. If they can make ghosts, can we make a lantern? The humiliating truth in those halls is this: when one side invents invisibility, everyone else starts inventing ways to see the dark. And that is the problem that Spectre-36 was born to solve. Far from the satellite feeds, in a workshop where parts rarely see sunlight, China's aerospace labs sketched an answer. Officially, research into advanced reconnaissance. Unofficially, a program to make stealth visible. The program name circulated in intelligence cables as Project Mu Ling, Shepherd. Photographs from commercial satellites show a new shape on the tarmac. Not the sharp lines of old fighters, but a blended manta form, panels laced with arrays, antennae that curve like ribs. Engineers inside describe something the surface reports don't: a lattice of sensors tuned to phase shifts, a system built not to bounce energy back, but to listen to what stealth leaves behind. In plain language, while a stealth jet tries to erase itself from radar, this machine reads the residue. The micro changes in electromagnetic fields, the tiny phase delays, the noise footprint that even the best cloak leaves. The Chinese called their method quantum ghost imaging. Western briefings labeled it phase detection. It is not magic. It is math. And when math is weaponized, it becomes methodical. The J-36 was being engineered to do what the F-47 never expected: convert invisibility into a signature. If the Ghost Hawk is the era's weapon of silence, then Beijing's blueprint aimed to make silence speak. August, pre-dawn, Hotan Range, empty except for the instruments. Commercial satellites captured it by chance. A series of heat signatures lining a remote pad. Then one took off. No transponder, no public notice. The object climbed, accelerated, and left behind a strange ion trail on infrared. At first, analysts wrote it off. Sensor artifact. But then a second satellite on a different orbit recorded an echo with matching timing. 2 independent systems, 1 flight. Reconstructed telemetry shows the object performing maneuvers inconsistent with conventional aerodynamics. Tight banking at extreme altitude, rapid vector changes while maintaining apparent stealth. A US analyst would later whisper, "It moved like it was reading the sky, not the ground." The next morning, a subset of signals arrived in a secure feed. Fragments of radar phase shift, barely above noise. Someone in the lab overlaid the data against known F-47 signatures and froze. The shape matched the pattern the F-47 left when it tried to hide, but this was reversed. The pattern looked like a magnet was pulling the ghost into view. That was the trial, not to prove speed or range, but to prove perception. That a craft could detect the undetectable. The desert gave up a whisper. The world pretended not to hear. 2 weeks later, an incident near Taiwan changed the calculus. A long-range patrol recorded a fleeting correlation, an F-47 on routine circuit, and a second, unannounced track moving in step. The F-47 transmitted no distress. The second object was not on military flight logs. For 19 seconds, the two signatures danced across the Pacific, a silent passe de deux in satellite feeds. Then both vanished. The F-47 returned to its base with a cosmetic overheating mark along its sensor bay. Superficial, officials said, nothing to worry about. Flight data was scrubbed from the public manifest. Behind closed doors, analysts compared waveforms. The second track's phase shift profile matched the Hotan trial's echoes. The conclusion was impossible and immediate. Something with Project Mu Ling's fingerprint had intercepted an F-47 on patrol. Intercepted is a loaded word. It could mean test, probe, harassment. But to pilots, it meant vulnerability. Taipei reported nothing. Beijing denied unusual activity. Washington filed a classified note requesting clarifications that never arrived. The public got form letters and standard denials. The message that went between intelligence agencies was simpler and colder. We might not be invisible anymore. The briefing in the Pentagon that followed was the kind you don't leak unless the messenger is tired of silence. Analysts presented three things: satellite correlates, phase shift overlays, and a cold new term, hunter imagery. That language changed posture. It turned strategy memos into emergency lines. Emergency budgets showed up in the draft spreadsheets: money for quantum-resistant radar arrays, funding for airborne signal labs, contracts flagged with expedite. Engineers who had bragged in private about theoretical limits now wrote memos with the headline, "If confirmed, immediate mitigation required." Publicly, the Air Force issued denials. No loss of capability, routine operations. Privately, an officer told a small circle, "We have a window of maybe 5 years before new sensors eat our advantage." 5 years for weapons programs is an emergency. Meanwhile, legal teams argued over rules of engagement for autonomous countermeasures. If a system can detect an F-47 signature and determine a probable threat, can it engage without human confirmation? The debate was academic, until it wasn't. In that room, the possibility of machines deciding to fire based on models trained on ghosts moved from theoretical horror to operational question. When the briefing ended, someone pulled a sheet from the binder and slid it into the secure printer. The cover read in block letters, Spectre 36, Operational Assessment. The stamp beneath it, Eyes Only. What happens when invisibility meets perception? The answer isn't physics, it's cognition. The F-47's onboard brain, Cerberus, learns by prediction. It watches radar sweeps and guesses the next move, altering its signal mid-flight to vanish between pulses. The J-36's mind, Blue Lantern, works in reverse. It listens for the gaps in the noise and reconstructs what should have been there. When both algorithms share the same sky, the fight becomes recursive, a duel of models updating in real time. One crafts silence, the other paints outlines inside that silence. Analysts call it cognitive aerial warfare. Pilots call it vertigo. Somewhere over the South China Sea, invisible circuits are writing history faster than humans can read it. In control rooms from Nevada to Chengdu, operators stare at screens that no longer show aircraft, only probabilities. And probabilities can kill you just as surely as shrapnel. Three weeks after the Washington briefing, residents of northern Guam recorded streaks of light crossing the coastline. The clips lasted seconds before vanishing from feeds. View counts froze, then the videos disappeared entirely. Officially, the lights were ionization events. Unofficially, internal cables labeled them correlated anomalies consistent with Spectre 36 signatures. One radar technician leaked a line before being silenced. It blinked back. Later analysis showed a pattern. Each plasma arc mirrored the telemetry of an F-47 patrol. Not intercepts, reflections. like someone shining a flashlight at a mirror and seeing their own beam return. The public never heard about it. The locals just said the air felt charged that night, like before a storm that never comes. Somewhere offshore, the hunter was practicing, not striking, listening, mapping every contour of America's invisibility. Once the data leaked, imitation began. Russia resurrected abandoned photonic radar prototypes. Israel tested entangled photon arrays over the Negev. India announced Bhargavastra, a micro-missile defense net designed to detect stealth drones by phase noise alone. The quantum race wasn't about missiles anymore. It was about awareness. Every nation with an air force started teaching machines to sense what human eyes never could. War was turning into a contest of perception. The US responded with Project Hollow Crown, classified funding for cognitive stealth countermeasures. Its stated goal: restore uncertainty. Uncertainty, the one resource war had almost lost. And while bureaucrats debated ethics, satellites kept spotting the same triangular specter slipping through cloud bands, sometimes alone, sometimes accompanied by nothing at all. Nobody could agree whether it was Chinese hardware or something new born from the noise itself. February 2026, above the Aleutian Corridor. Two F-47s on a routine Arctic intercept reported a sensor blackout mid-flight. Every telemetry line went dead for precisely 49 seconds. When systems returned, one jet's flight computer contained an extra log file, unreadable, time-stamped in Mandarin. The pilot described a halo of distortion ahead of his canopy. Not light, not heat, something bending space just enough to shimmer. Then it was gone. Analysts later measured a perfect phase echo ring expanding from that point. A footprint too refined for atmosphere, too deliberate for weather. The incident report used one word twice: Spectre 36. And for the first time, the file carried no question mark after it. Washington held a classified debrief 3 days later. Satellite imagery confirmed the pattern. Concentric interference ripples across 200 miles of upper atmosphere. No missile launch, no debris, no heat bloom. Something had looked back at the F-47 and erased its own reflection. The report's language was cautious. Probable adversarial sensing event. But inside defense circles, one sentence circulated by encrypted chat. The hunter sees us now. A follow-up memo proposed an emergency collaboration with allied labs on adaptive cognitive fog, software designed to inject false noise into phase detection arrays. In other words, America's newest stealth might survive by pretending to be many ghosts at once. Because one ghost is easy to hunt, 1,000 phantoms, less so. Since that night, Spectre 36 has never been seen again, not officially. Yet every few months, radar logs across the Pacific show tiny gaps, missing seconds, holes where data should exist. Maybe it's interference. Maybe it's something passing between pulses. The new systems call those blanks persistence anomalies. The pilots call them shadows of silence. Somewhere above the jet stream, the ghost hunter still drifts, blind to politics, loyal only to its code. And while nations argue over budgets and treaties, an invisible triangle traces circles in the dark, mapping, waiting, remembering. Because the sky no longer belongs to those who fly, it belongs to those who can see the unseen. Screen fades to black. One final radar ping. End. Subscribe to US Warfare Desk, where the shadows of tomorrow's war are already flying today.